That's right, we're going to kick off with the front cover of the Times. It says Starmer, a big majority will be best for Britain. This is going back to the idea of this super majority. The bigger the majority, Keir Starmer says that he feels it's going to make for the country being more stable. James, do you agree with Sir Keir Starmer?
Well, I agree that that's the message that he's got to give. I think the issue that he's dealing with is that compared to perhaps 97, where we saw the last landslide in a Labour majority, I think there was a genuine enthusiasm for Tony Blair. I don't think there is an enthusiasm for Keir Starmer. I think there is an enthusiasm to get rid of the current government. And I think that's a very different message, because if people assume that there is going to be a majority and they're not that keen on him, he's got to persuade everybody to get out and vote if that's what he wants. Whether a big majority is best for Britain, I have absolutely no idea, because he keeps saying that if you vote for him, if you vote for Labour, you're going to be better off. And I haven't seen a single policy in that manifesto that is going to put any more money in anybody's pockets. So, look, I'm sorry, I understand what he's saying. I totally get what he's saying. I think it's more telling that perhaps you've got Kemi Badenoch saying, voting reform risks losing, hundreds of Tory MPs for a generation. And I think there are a lot of people rubbing their hands with glee up and down the country going, good, good riddance. And I think we've got a good riddance. We've got a very popular party who could very well have this supermajority, and I think we've never seen an election like it.
Marina, this term of supermajority, which sort of has entered the vocabulary of the election, does it mean anything? I mean, it's an American term.
It's made up.
Right.
It's made up.
So does the size of the majority matter?
A supermajority does not exist within our parliamentary system. It's taken from the US and certain votes that are cast there. It's made up to try and make you fear, Keir Starmer having free rein to be able to do whatever he wants without checks and balances. The reality is, whether you have a majority of 3 or 300, it actually is immaterial as long as you can keep your party in line, your backbenchers in line. So it's sent out there as a fear message. But I will also say, I understand, I agree with James, why Keir Starmer is saying this. He wants people to go out and vote. Personally, I wouldn't want a Labour supermajority. I actually think I don't want strong government. I don't want a party like we've had with the Conservatives just doing whatever they want because they've got this huge majority and pushing things through. I actually think, bearing in mind so many people will be lending their vote to Labour, I actually want Labour to be a collaborative government when they get into power. I would like there to be more Greens, more Lib Dems.
So hang on, I'm confused though, because you're both saying you don't want a Labour to have a huge majority. But as you said, what difference does it make? A majority of 10 is still a majority. If you have a majority of 200...
Well, no, I think there's a difference, because I think if you've got a majority of 200, then you don't have to have the conversation about getting that legislation through.
But hang on a minute.
And very often it means that you end up with bad legislation.
OK, but let me pause you there, James. Boris Johnson prorogued Parliament with the numbers that Theresa May got in the 2019 election. Remember, she had to do a deal with the DUP in order to be able to govern. So a slither of a majority. And Boris Johnson was able, with that tiny majority, to effectively shut down Parliament. He was also able, in the majority of 80, which was not called a supermajority, but he had a majority of 80, to pass by Parliament introducing secondary legislation, which means that Parliament can't scrutinise it. It seems to me that if you have a majority, it doesn't matter if it's 5, 10, 80, 200, it's what you do with that majority.
It is how you work the political system. I agree with that to an extent. But I also agree that never before have we seen a government score so many own goals. From Boris Johnson to Theresa May to Liz Truss to, and now with Rishi Sunak.
Is it more a problem, as actually William Hague wrote in the Times, having had the experience of being the leader of the opposition after the 97 election, that if you whittle down the opposition to such small numbers, so Labour getting such a huge majority that the official opposition is whittled down, that you don't have enough people to cover all the shadow ministers. So you don't have enough scrutiny being given by the shadow department. You can't fill a lot of the committee seats as well. Is that a problem? So perhaps there is a small concern of, hang on, if Labour become too big, then actually there isn't enough pushback in Parliament.
I agree. I do agree with that, which is why I would love us to have proportional representation, so people could actually vote with their hearts, and we'd end up with a Parliament that was reflective of what people were voting for. But we don't have that. So yes, this is why I do hope. I want Labour to win because it's a two-horse race and not Labour over Conservatives, right? But I would like there to be enough people in there so that Labour are held to account. Because I think other parties have got some very valuable things to say, and I think it would make sense for Labour to be scrutinised with their sort of policies in mind.
But I think there is something else, which is if you understand how the political system works and you realise that there are only a certain number of jobs in government.
About 100 or so.
So for Labour to control all the people who will be sitting on the backbenches not doing very much, and once all the committee positions are filled and once the government is filled, they're going to have a real problem controlling their party because these people get bored, they go and sit in the bars, they go and do other things.
Backbenches with a lot of time on their hands, always a bit dangerous.
It is.
Let's move on to another huge story.